Hi everyone, my name is Fiona. I've been programming for about a year now. I did General Assembly March last year, and I started work here at Expert 360 around August, which is when I first got exposed to Elixir. Talk about pattern matching. It's one of the first things you learn when you learn Elixir, but I don't think I really realised the power of it until I started writing some code and a lot of my code and condition statements to work out the logic for a particular problem. An example of that is here. This is some actual code that I wrote. It was basically just checking if a field was nil, and I wrote some condition statements. And to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I can read that, but a colleague suggested there's definitely a better way in Elixir. So that started my realization of how I can use pattern matching to make my code more readable, testable. And so I'll just share a couple of points from my journey. So yeah, what is pattern matching? First thing you learn is the equals is not assigning a value, it's a match operator. So in the background, Elixir is really comparing the right to the left, which is coming from Ruby and JavaScript. That I'm like, okay, cool. So I write, oh, by the way, a lot of my examples will be to do with wine because I just came back from Margaret River for the long weekend. So, and a lot of these examples are written over there. So I kind of get, I'm fine, cabsav equals 5 stars. Okay, my variable cabsav is 5 stars. Merlot, 4 stars. Okay, that's found the value. But then I've gone cabsav 3 stars, and it lets you rebind a value to the variable, which I found interesting, but not too concerning, I guess. And then I learned about the pin operator, and what that does is binds the value, or keeps the previous bounded value to that variable. So when you're comparing it, Elixir will make sure that it's going to remember that previous variable. I learned that shape matters. It's really cool. I want to match the right to the left. All I need to do is make sure that the symbols are the same, and there's values on the right and the variables on the left. So here's a tuple, ABC, 1, 2, 3. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. If I change the shape, so to a list, then I get an error. And I think the errors in Elixir are quite good, so it's a really good guiding hand to working out what's going wrong. So clearly, yeah, the right-hand side value does not match the the left. Always read right to left. So if I'm got a map here, key value, wine tasty, of course, equals wine cabsav. Cabsav is now got the value of tasty bound to it. If I go the opposite, wine elegant and wine pinot noir, and yes it is, but I've got it the wrong way around, and Elixir will error on that. So just remembering those as a starting off point helped with my journey into pattern matching. The other things that I really like about pattern matching is when you've got a list and you've got head to tail, so I can grab the first value in the list and save that to whatever I want. I could call it head, I could call it anything I wanted. You can also add an item to the beginning of the list by grabbing the list, doing the same sort of pattern here, adding Pinot Noir to my list of new wines, and I've got a new wine list. So that's all sort of part of the bits that make up my understanding of pattern matching. And it wasn't until that I learned about pattern matching and functions that I realized the advantage that Elixir has, especially for someone who's new to coding. So hopefully that's coming up okay. So just going off the previous example of a list. My module wine country has a few functions in it. In this one, I'm checking a list. And first looking at this, I'm like, checklist, okay, cool, it's a list. And there's a head and a tail. And it's just so specific that I can just go, okay, I want to match against that pattern and do something. Or if it's empty, it's literally an empty list and matching that. And then this is like the catch-all. So just running that through, cool, I've got wines. And simply, if it's an empty list, it'll match against that. And anything else, gin. So one of the points where this was really useful in actual code was just recently with a keyword search coming from the front end. It's a list with words like this, and on the back end had to capture that and then join it and make it a string of words. So by simply doing something like that, it did it for me, and it's also really readable for someone else to come along to that code and know what's going on. You can also pattern match on maps. In this multi-clause function, we're pattern matching on the food and giving you a wine to go with that food. Regardless of what else is in that map, it'll match on what you put there. So I could put food, oysters, or I could say mood happy and do something else. So I thought that was really cool and just like something that hadn't come across in anything else really. So if we just go choose wine and we choose oysters. Close bracket. So yeah, Riesling goes well with oysters. That's really cool. The other sort of real world examples that I've really liked with pattern matching is when we're handling errors. So just having a function that handles the response from a function and piping it into it, you can immediately go, hey, okay, cool. Here's a response. Or if it's an error, do error message. It's as simple as 2 lines to handle an error coming through. And also with routing, simply matching on the actual URL just makes it so simple and readable. And the other thing that I thought was really cool was, even though there's no while loops in Elixir, to do that, it's really simple. It's recursion. And so for this example here, I'm just going to go through a list of wineries, and it's going to print out the ones that I've visited. So yeah, I thought was cool, and really simple to learn as well. And the other example that I had was nested maps. So with a JSON response, so for example from Elasticsearch, got a JSON response coming through. If I want to grab the variable from that, I simply just have to match the pattern that's coming through from Elasticsearch, and I can grab that variable. So this is the code that I showed you before, and what was, say, 10 lines of code after I've learnt about pattern matching and guard clauses as you can see, it becomes 2 lines of code. And for someone else coming along to read the code, I think it's easy to pick up and get across the code base pretty quickly. So yeah, all up, I think the things I've learnt is I'm thinking about the shape of the data that's coming through to my functions. It's definitely more readable. I think I was quite embarrassed to open PRs before with my condition statements and if-else statements. And yeah, just learning about the pattern matching and functions, it just looks so much more slick. And error handling is a lot easier, and also testing, because it breaks it apart a lot more than having the one function with the conditional logic all bound into the one function. So yeah, thanks for listening. I'll put my code up on GitHub. And yeah, just a reminder, we're hiring. I'm new to Elixir and coding, and I've picked up Elixir over the last 7 months. It's been a pleasure. It's quite exciting. So yeah, we're looking for full stack or back-end developers.